Welcome to Silicon Valley Asian Business Talk.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rajat Chen, a professor at the University of San Francisco Center for Business Studies and Innovation in Asia Pacific, and short for CBSI AP. Today, first, we want to thank the Facebook House for hosting this event. This is a very, very special venue for us to do this interview. And we also want to thank you, Raj, for coming to our interview program. And would you please briefly introduce yourself before we start the conversation?
Yeah, thanks, Roger, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'll give a quick introduction about myself. I'm originally born in Toronto, Canada. I grew up around the world in different countries, Abu Dhabi and UK. Parents originally came from India. And I went to Waterloo undergrad, did engineering and economics there. In my last year, Waterloo is where I came up with the idea for the company that eventually became Lyft, and started working with my co-founders there, Logan, John, and other folks. I also got into this program in the US. It's a PhD MBA program at MIT, very unique program. Only 4 people in the world were accepted into it. So I felt, it was a great opportunity. It was a full ride at MIT. I started my program there at MIT, but I realized it was nothing compared to the thrill of startup. So I dropped out, and began working, on my entrepreneurial career. And this was in 2008, the absolute bottom of the stock market, the biggest part of the recession in the fall. Everyone thought I was absolutely crazy, but I was ready to be hopeless. I was ready to do whatever I needed to do to make this, make startups work. And it turned out to be a great time to start a company. And so that's how it started. I started another company called Presto, which became the market leader for AI and automation in the restaurant space, working with big restaurant chains like Applebee's and Chili's, Denny's, Red Lobster, Del Taco, and Jack in the Box, those types of big
And you eventually went for a public,
I went public in 2022. And I left shortly thereafter, and since then I've started 2 new companies. One is called Lima, which is a mission-driven organization I've started with my wife to help skilled immigrants come to the U.S. So we help skilled immigrants with every part of their journey to get visas and green cards, because the immigration system in the U.S. is a nightmare, and I know this as an immigrant myself, and having a lot of immigrants working for me. And then I also started another company, which is back to my tech roots. It's called Tribe. It's the next generation group chat platform. It's what I think is going to be next after WhatsApp, after WeChat, after all these legacy platforms, which are over 10 years old at this point. And so we're trying to reinvent group chat and really focusing on building closer communities online on your phone. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I also have a podcast called Founders in Arms, and I do this with the CEO and founder of Mercury, Imad Akut. We talk to different founders every week. We've had some great people on. We had Aaron Levy last week from Box. We had Paul English from Kayak. A lot of great people coming on the podcast, and something I enjoy doing to contribute back to the community.
Thank you very much.
Seasoned founder, criteria for starting a new venture.
My first question is, when you have done several startup companies, and for the 2 most recent ones, like Lima and the Tribe, what were the factors you were considering, or the criteria you evaluate when you look at the new ideas, new opportunities, to make you say yes or no, I'm going to do it? So what's the thought process?
It's a great question. A lot of founders have very different methodologies when they think about what they want to do. For me, the number one thing that actually is my North Star is my personal interest. On what problems do I want to solve?
The passion in it.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Like, what problems really bother me that I really think that I can solve, and maybe are not problems that other people are talking about. And there's lots of great companies in that space already. So it's a little bit more contrarian problems. But oftentimes the contrarianism piece is hidden. Like right now working on GroupChat, you might think, oh, there's another company doing GroupChat, right? Back then when I was starting Presto, for doing, I had the idea of putting a tablet on the table in restaurants so guests can order and pay by themselves. And everyone I talked to said, oh, this problem is solved. We have these old Verifone devices, we just can take payment. And of course, it was nowhere near solved, right? At that time. And even with Lyft and stuff, there's oh, Craigslist has a the rideshare platform. So it always seems solved, right? But like it turns out that it's never fully solved, and there's always a better version to come up with, right? So, but I always look at it as like, is anyone really taking a next generation look at it? And that's what I look for. But most times they're not. Most times it's most companies and most startups actually follow each other. They kind of herd a lot. They do the same thing together. Right now, there's a lot of companies in AI, and they're all kind of doing. Some of them are really doing the same thing. Like just like slightly different ways. Um, and so I always look at problems that I'm personally interested in. I also look at like technologies that I'm interested in developing as an inventor. So like I like to invent, and like the idea for Presto came before the iPad came out. So at that point, I was like inventing a tablet as well as it was like trying to actually deploy a device at a table, and there was no such concept of a hardware device, at that point. And this instinct is probably not a greatest instinct for a founder because, especially from a business perspective, because it leads me to do more difficult things. I end up taking on very difficult challenges, but I still like inventing. I like doing difficult things. So it's been but and you can see that some founders are able to do it. Like people like Elon Musk are able to invent.
Right.
And catch rockets with chopsticks, or develop new robotic taxis or whatever it is, right? So yeah, invention is important to me. I do think about the business side as well. So I think it's important for founders to think about like business model and financing strategy from the ground up, right? Like, okay, if you're going to need financing for a company, like you absolutely need it because you have hardware, for example, and you're building robots. Okay, are you going to be able to raise that funding? Like, are you the type of person who can raise that funding? Are you willing to spend half of your life talking to investors? Because we spend a lot of time talking to investors, and it's not fun for any founder that I know. It's not fun. So, you have to be willing to grind. It's a lifestyle decision you're making. That I'm going to have to spend a lot of time with investors. Like, there's a company called Boom Arrow, right? They're making a next generation supersonic jet, right? And they have to necessarily they need a lot of funding, so you have to spend a lot of time like talking to investors. I think from a business perspective, founders have easier life. They don't need that much money to get a product off the ground. Nowadays, it's very easy to get especially apps and software. And you can actually you can start a company with no financing, and then actually become very profitable from the very beginning. Which is for a first-time founder, that's what I recommend. Because it now allows you to get your first exit, to get some cash flow without having to take a lot of risk and spend a lot of time raising money from investors. Raising money from investors is actually much easier when you're a later stage, when you're a repeat founder who has some success. Yeah. So you can take bigger swings on the financing piece. And also you have to think about who your customer base is. The customer base, as a founder, the customer base is your boss, right? Like founders have bosses and they're customers, right? And so if you don't like your boss, you're going to hate your job. That's true for employees. It's also true for founders, right? And so a lot of founders are like, yeah, this could be a good business, but then they don't think carefully about the customer and like, is that someone you want to work for? For example, like a founder maybe with no background in construction now wants to develop a product, selling to construction executives. Maybe they have no corporate background at all. Like, do you really want to spend your time selling to corporate America and executives which you have no affinity with at all? Like, probably not. Like you could. And for me, selling to restaurant executives turned out to be a problem long term because it was something for me I wasn't that excited about ultimately, right? Like restaurant executives are fine people, but it wasn't like a group of people I really empathize. I'm not a restaurant guy, right? So I find myself much more at home selling to consumers because these are my family, my friends, and people I identify with. And even though the product I sold at Presto was a B2B2C product, it was all consumer based, but I wasn't selling to the consumers. I was selling to the businesses. Some people are very at home selling to businesses. They have the personality to really be business focused. Some people are not, and I don't think I'm the person to be very business focused. So you have to realize who you are as a founder and what you're interested in.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
One interesting point I actually thought is when you look at the problem beside your passion, even though you think that space is, kind of occupied by some other companies, but you still try to see some differentiations, opportunities. Could you elaborate? Because if, for example, you take the company you're doing, if you look at the space, they are competitors, but you still think there are opportunities there.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, more than competition, what founders should look for are big markets, you know? So, I mean, you could, in 2005, someone could look at the cell phone industry and say, like, you know, there's plenty of competitors in this space. There's BlackBerry, there's Nokia, and like, there's plenty of phones around. They're great, they're cheap, they all work, right? Why come up with something new? So, like, you could take that, or you could look at cars, you know, in 2005 as well. You could say, like, oh, a lot of cars out there, good cars, you know, people seem to be developing great cars. So, like, I always think that, like, you have to have, if you're passionate about a space, there's always opportunities to make a better thing, I think, right? And what happens is, what I've noticed in every industry, in every cycle, is that, like, you know, there's something new that comes out, it gets great, everyone adopts it,
Yeah.
you know, and then the companies that develop that product get, like, fat and greedy and slow, and, like, they just stop caring, you know, and they have a cash cow that they're all riding, and they stop innovating. So that means that even though that they have a product, a good product in the space, you know, it's probably not keeping up. They're not disrupting themselves. It's just the innovator's dilemma. But it's so real. It's so real. There's so many. I've seen it happen even with my own companies. I say, at a certain scale, it's hard for me to innovate. You know, it's hard for me to change, put resources on the next thing. You know, so that's me. But if you have, like, you know, a corporate executive who has a short-term goal to hit their bonus, it's even worse.
That's true.
So it happens. It is so hard to fight that. It's basically like trying to fight gravity. And I don't think any company has been really successful at doing it. That's also one of the reasons why, you know, when I invest in like, you know, like, say, public stock market or public companies, I only take founder-backed companies or founder-led companies.
Yeah.
Because they're the only ones willing to disrupt it. You know, if the founder's not leading the company in general, unless the founder, you know, unless the executive name is Satya, you know, like, they're not going to be willing to, like, you know, disrupt themselves to get to the next thing, and they will be disrupted by the next wave.
Let me ask you follow-up questions. Do you have a problems or difficulties for VCs to push back on your idea? Say, hey, even though this space seems to be crowded, but I still see some opportunities there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, VCs in general, you know, I've been rejected by thousands of VCs. You know, so, you know, there's no shortage of VCs saying no to me. I think one thing that I've become better at over time. So VC, when founders are raising money from VCs, it's a volume game. You know, like, if you have, like, a disruptive idea, something that is contrarian, by definition, most VCs will say no because they're following the herd.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to be ready for a lot of rejection. That's actually very mentally difficult as a founder. You know, because you really believe in this thing, and when people are telling you all the time it's not going to work, they're not going to invest, you can't help but doubt. You know, you can't help but say, oh, geez, maybe they're right. You know, like, they've seen lots of companies, they've seen lots of things. So, but, you know, I think founders have to be tough and have to have their own inner compass. And that's why a lot of people don't stick with it. You know, they give up pretty easily after the first few years, because it just wears them down, just grinds them down. And but, you know, for me, it's actually been the opposite. When VCs say no to me, I get angry. I'm like, I don't want to prove them wrong. So that's
You're more motivated.
Yeah, more motivated. Yeah. So, like, you know, it's like, no, I'll show you. You know. So I think founders can take that and you know, use every rejection as a reason, you know, to push themselves emotionally. But of course, irrationally, you need to still think, you know, is this feedback valid? You know, I put out a tweet recently about this, but, like, you know, it's amazing how much more you learn about anything, any problem or any solution, by actually doing the thing, like actually building the solution and actually, like, seeing it work within in its environment, than by hearing other people talk about it. So most VCs, they just learn by hearing other people talk about it. They're meetings all day. You know, they're not actually, like, building stuff and testing it and, like, getting people's feedback and seeing what users are using, what they're not using. So their resolution is very low on these problems, right? So at a low enough resolution, you know, even a child's painting can look like a Picasso and vice versa. You know, a Picasso can look like a child's painting too. So if you can't really see what's going on, you're just everything's going to be hazy. So VCs have a tough job. You know, that's why they end up following the herd a lot. They're like, oh, the other person invested, I'll just invest too, because who knows? They don't know. So, or they're, you know, apologies to any VC.
I also like the idea saying sometimes, even for entrepreneurs, actually go ahead and do it, try it. You also give you lots of opportunities to learn because
Totally.
you see the nuance, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I see most of VCs are missing.
Oh, yeah.
Piece.
So when I started Presto, I worked as a waiter in a restaurant for, I spent my first year and a half inside the restaurant, building the product. My office was a seat at a table at a restaurant. And I would build the product and I'll be testing with users in real time. Like I'll be coding inside the restaurant and deploying code to the tablets, in real time and then see how people used it. And it was very disruptive. I learned a lot. At Lyft, which was Zimba when we started it, I drove the first people around. I was driving carpools. So you got to do that, right?
Right. So that's the very effective way for you to gain the real insights.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Key steps/principles for product market fit.
Most entrepreneurs kind of struggle with or kind of face the challenge, which we call the how do you start from the idea to the product eventually to reach the product market fit. Maybe you can tell us the story of either Presto or Lyft, through that kind of journey, how they find the product that fit the market and even the business model, we call it product market fit.
Yeah.
Maybe could you kind of share some stories about that journey and maybe start of a company failed to find that?
Yeah, I can tell you a few different stories. Yeah. I think for any product market fit, a lot of it seemed like, dark magic, but it's actually very repeatable. It's very, there's a very clear set of things you do to get a product market fit.
Tell us the secret playbook.
Yeah, there's a playbook, right? The playbook is this, right? Like, first of all, you have to understand the market very well. Like, what is the market size? Like, how many customers are there in this market, right? And how acute is this problem for them? If the problem is not on their top 3 problems, right, then it's going to be, you're going to have tricky building any solution that they adopt, right? Because they're just not, so this is especially for B2B, right? In B2B, don't even bother developing solutions for problems that are not top 3 for your target customer, right? And this could be like a different profile in a business. It could be, you have the marketing person or you have the operations person, which team are you selling into? If it's not top 3 of that person, they might meet with you and like give you lip service, but they won't actually buy your product. But if it is the top, so just that by itself, by the way, is something that most entrepreneurs don't get right. They absolutely do not think very critically about the market size and the priority of the problem. And then all you have to do is understand. Okay, now you have a problem that's their top problem. Okay, find a compelling solution that delivers a ton of ROI, a ton of value for that problem, and go the extra mile. Go to the extreme that no company's gone before to deliver extra value. Right? Once you've done that, it becomes quite easy. I mean, you should be able to have a meeting with the customers and explain why you add value to them, and then they should be able to understand that. Like if you explain it very clearly, here's how much money you make by buying this product. If it's their top problem, they won't buy it. Like it's very deterministic. So from a B2B perspective, and so for B2C, it's a little bit different. B2C, your consumers have a lot of problems, right? Like but at any given time, the problems can change, right? And sometimes they have, like for example, you might take, getting from point A to point B is not generally a consumer's top problem, but at certain times of the day it is, right?
Yeah.
Certain times of the day, right? So even with Tribe, it's like, okay, maybe connecting with other humans is not always their problem, but at certain times of the day it is, and certain times of their life it is, right? So what you want to do is develop, the best possible product for that time in their lives, and make sure that they know about it and they're aware of it, and make sure it's truly delightful. For consumers are a lot more product oriented and less ROI driven, right? They just want to use a delightful product that they can that gives them happiness or gives them learning, right? Happiness or learning are kind of the things that they're looking for, something that also gives them, we all have these basic needs as consumers, right? We have a need for connection. We have, need to get from point A to point B. We have basic needs of health and stuff like that. And this Maslow's pyramid of needs, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy to understand. You have to be solving one of those needs, and do it at the right time and with the best product in the space. For consumers, there's always a formula as well. It's like, first of all, do you love your own product, right? Second of all, do your friends actually love your product? Third of all, like, do your close connections also love your product? People who are not your friends, but your connections. And then fourth of all, the strangers love your product.
So these are kind of the test of the product,
Yes.
the value to
Yes.
it. Okay.
Yes, and a test of love, and test of, and you have to be very honest. Are people just say they like it, or are people actually using it? If people, everybody wants to be nice, so everybody will tell you nice things. But if they're not actually investing the time to use the product, they're, that it doesn't mean anything. So, I actually, right now B2C is out of favor. It's so
Out of favor.
out of favor. I think 95% of Y Combinator companies are B2B these days. And I think as a first-time founder, that's totally fine because, B2B is much easier to make your first exit as a first-time founder. But I still think there's way more opportunities in B2C than people think. Right? There's like tons of opportunities. And consumers always looking for better things, and so but I don't know if they're all venture scale. I think there's going to be a lot of mid-scale businesses which are not venture scale. But if you're a founder and you build $100 million a year business, with a team of 10 people, that's a very good outcome for founders. And it's more founders should take that path versus like trying to go and convince VCs that this is going to be a $1 billion outcome.
So kind of organic, basically you're kind of referring to the organic
Yeah.
growth, as a strategy or path.
Yes. Right now, there's a lot of apps out there which are doing tens of millions in revenue. Just few 20-year-old kids, like building this great, building a nice app, maybe solving one very narrow problem well, and making a lot of money. And it's not a VC backable thing, but it's the founders are being very successful.
Okay, and also relating to this, maybe if you can share with us, for example, the Presto we talked about selling to the restaurant. Do you have any kind of story? What are some of the few early adopters, the restaurants that use your product? What was the experience? Why you're able to persuade them? Is it because of the name of products, or do you have other kind of wisdoms to share to basically persuade these restaurants to be your early adopter? That's my real question. Because what about the persuading or developing these early adopters, which is very, very difficult for many new business.
I actually don't think it's that hard to get people to use an early product. We live in the United States of America. It's a pretty risk tolerant society. There is a lot of very entrepreneurial people in the US. And it's why it's the best market to build companies. And you just need to find them, right? And so your job as a founder is to go talk to hundreds of people, and maybe 10% or 20% will be early adopters, and they will love what you say. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, I've been thinking about it myself." But we have to get used to 70% of the people saying, or just not replying, or not being that interested, right? That's okay. But you should know that 10, 20%, when you have a real solution to an existing problem, people will adopt it. Like that's a great thing about our society. And once you find those people, you gotta, hug them close and reward them for being, part of your early community, because they will be the evangelist to the mainstream, So finding the early adopters is one of the most fun things to do as a founder. Is like getting to know those people, getting their feedback, identifying them when you find them, and rewarding them for their interest in terms of, they get to shape your roadmap. They get to see that you're taking their feedback seriously.
And also, do you think there's any kind of a difference in identify, develop, or discover, let's say, the early adopters between a B2B and a B2C? Like, when you talk B2B, naturally, you talk about just the early adopter, these companies are willing to take a risk. They're willing to kind of work with you, even though it's going to fail, versus the B2C. And people are very sensitive to the new trendy stuff. Do you see any kind of a difference of working on it, finding these early adopters in the B2B and B2C space?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, for B2B, when you have a new product, if you can the B2B strategy is like deliver the early products at a very low cost, right? A very low price to the customer, and then increase the price for every new customer you get. Every new customer, you have an increase in price. And because every new customer is being de-risked by the previous customer.
Yeah.
Right? And so by the time you're like selling into like the 10th plus customer, you're making a lot of money, But the first few customers, they're to be rewarded for their being early adopter by paying a much lower price. So actually, that formula works really well. Consumers are different. Consumers actually are more likely to buy a product if it's priced high as a new product, because consumers value novelty.
So the price is kind of higher for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like when the iPhone came out, the price way higher than all the other Nokia and stuff like that, right? Even now, the iPhone is still priced higher, right? So, your pricing actually is very important for consumer. And for consumers, yes, there are some early adopters who will use new products, but you don't want to lower your price for them because it cheapens your product. It actually it sends a totally wrong signal. So I think if you have like a new product by itself, that will be attractive to some companies. Well, there's so many millions and millions of consumers out there. Everyone's looking for something new and cool to go off with.
Okay. That's great.
Making successful pivots in new venture development.
So my next question is about pivot because actually one of your companies called Presto actually mentioned, during the pandemic time, this company had a major pivot. Maybe could you tell us the story about the pivot story? Because I think that's very, very important for many, many startup companies.
Totally, yeah.
And the wisdom, the lessons from there.
Yeah. I mean, both Lyft and Presto had very significant pivots.
Yeah. So maybe share with us the story of the Lyft and also Presto.
Yeah. So Lyft started as a carpooling service, where we could find people to share rides with. And we started working with universities. So actually it was a very university-centric service because we were all students at the time.
Oh,
When we started. Me and Logan were both 22.
oh,
Around 22. And so he was at University of Santa Barbara and I was at Waterloo. And we all wanted to solve this problem for students where they wanted to get home, wherever there was, and they, students didn't have their own cars, so we needed carpool. And you could find a ride with other students on this website at that time, right? And that's how we started, and we started doing a B2C service, and then my co-founders wanted to kind of go and just sell a product to universities. But as it turned out that selling product to university is very hard. Universities are very bureaucratic. You might know this, right? So, it's they don't tend to adopt.
they're definitely not able to adopt most of the innovations.
Exactly. So that was a big mistake, right? And what happened was Uber came out, with this ride-hailing idea, but they were ride-hailing with black cars or black cabs, right? So very expensive cars. But Lyft came up with the idea of being peer-to-peer ride-sharing via ride-hailing on the phone. The phone actually came out after Lyft was founded. So this was a new technology that came out. And it, what Lyft did was pivot back into B2C with ride-hailing, but for peer-to-peer, and turned out to be one of the greatest pivots of all time. I mean, it was so great that Uber actually copied Lyft. Uber X was it was called at the time, was the copy of Lyft's peer-to-peer service, and then both companies grew rapidly after that, right? Presto, started with this idea of having it on the table so guests could order and pay.
You mean the restaurant, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, you still have them in many restaurants, Applebee's and all these places. Like they have tablets where you can order and pay, and without waiting for someone, you can just you can fill out a survey, you can play games with your kids, you can see pictures of all the food, all those things. So that's how it started. And in 2019, we actually had our best year ever. We tripled. We signed big deals with Denny's and some other customers. Chili's were rolling out. Great, it was a great time. And then early 2020, what happens? The pandemic hits, all restaurants are shut down, right?
Yeah.
And all our momentum we got, basically, right? Existential moment, right? Company doesn't have any customers. Tablets are just bricks at that point, right? And not only that, our supply chain is wrecked. Our supply chain in China and it's totally wrecked as well. So we started working on our next show. We were already working in AI at that time with computer vision and voice AI. This was already an interest of ours. And then we started applying it to drive-throughs. We're still open. So we started doing computer vision for drive-throughs where we could recognize the cars as they came in and we could personalize the menu based on your previous orders. And then we had voice AI to be able to take your order, with the ASR, automated speech recognition, as well as, we use a combination of AI and human in the loop to take people's orders with AI. We were able to make the experience much better for the consumer, and we were able to help restaurants with a severe labor shortage that was there in the pandemic. You could actually increase what the labor in the restaurant could do because they didn't have to take the order; they could do other things. So they could increase the labor productivity significantly. And the AI never forgot to upsell. So we had these things where we would always remember to ask if you want the milkshake. So restaurants actually made more money. And that product became very successful very quickly. Because again, I had the knowledge at that point of like how to get product on the fit. I knew this was the labor thing was the top problem of the restaurant, and they do want to pay money for a solution like that. So that product really took off, and we signed several large contracts even before I left, and so that so and then now it seems like almost like a obvious idea. Like to put AI in drive-throughs, yeah, of course, all drive-throughs will have AI, right? And I also think computer vision is going to be everywhere too. Like computer vision, there's a company called like Flock Safety, which are putting license plate recognition cameras all over the country to help catch criminals. Criminals do something bad, they get away in their car, no one can see them, but no, these cameras are catching them. And even Los Altos, actually around here, they have cameras. They catch people, so don't do anything bad today. They'll catch you.
Right, that's true. So actually,
Can I get one more of these?
yeah. And also, what's the lesson, actually going or managing these pivot process, what might go wrong and the wisdom, the wisdom, the reflections of kind of dealing with different things. Because many times it's a major shift.
Yeah,
So,
I think pivoting is essential to the founder journey. And founders need to think about what is the goal and are they actually making rapid progress towards the goal or are they not? And
what do you mean by that? I rapid progress toward the goal or not?
So most founders have a goal in mind. Their goal might be to get a certain revenue target or usage target or some other thing. And they may feel like, the current path is not getting them there. Right? Like, and so that in the pandemic, for example, we obviously had to pivot because it was that in the company we had, right? But even in Lyft's case, South universities were just slow. It wasn't like everyone was saying no, but it was just slow. And there was just a faster path to get to where you wanted to be. And so you always have to be evaluating as a founder, like, is the current path the right one or the other path that get you there faster? And I think most founders, you could just look at the Lyft story and realize like how powerful a pivot can be. And, maybe as a founder, you should realize that you're only one pivot away from like greatness, like if like, too many founders, I think, would accept mediocrity. Like they'll accept like, oh, my business is growing a little bit. I've seen founders spend decades on like making basically very little progress.
But you have a little aspiration, so they're kind of okay with.
Yeah, they're just chugging along, and maybe the company does, it doesn't really get anywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's just like surviving. And some founders are okay with that, but I would say like, if you're an ambitious founder, you should want to get to the top. And so like, in many cases, there is a way to get to the top, but you have to find that way. And it's not obvious. And it's like the deeper you get into a problem, the more you realize there are other opportunities and other options. And actually, that's very unique insight someone will have once they're in a space. So like, for example, at Presto, because we were in the space, we were in the arena, we could see the opportunity with this, right? And because we already developed a bunch of technology, we already had like a brand in restaurants. So we saw the opportunity because we were in it. And so founders have this unique advantage of being in it and they can see more opportunities than say someone new entering the space.
But that's kind of interesting because, I heard the similar thing about those kind of some mediocre founders. They're not kind of aspire to kind of grow very big. Just like they even a term called a zombie startups. They just stay hanging there forever, right? So then the question is actually, is that because these companies, the founders don't, or the company don't have the insights, or the founders don't have the aspiration, or both, or maybe something else?
I think it's a founder issue.
The founder issue.
Yeah, I think founders need to be impatient. And I think some people start companies because they just don't want to work at a bigger company and they just want to kind of do their own thing.
Like a lifestyle.
Yeah. Some people start companies because they actually want to have major impact and they realize we only have so many years to have impact, as human beings. So you want to make the most of it and take big swings while you're at it, right?
Yeah, that's a very different philosophy, right?
Yeah. And I think it's hard. I don't think you'd see ever like some of the best founders that we all kind of admire, just chugging along, Steve Jobs had his own wilderness phase when he worked on Next, right? But even him at a certain point was like, oh, this is not getting me there, right? That's a great example of a founder that only works at B2C and not B2B. Because at Next, the B2B company,
Yeah,
So he,
actually,
he basically failed, right? But at a B2C company, he was, a god, right? So like, that's why founders have to realize, like, if this path isn't getting them there, they may have to make a personal pivot, just do a different company, like so.
but that's very good insight because I never thought about Steve Jobs, from that angle. Like Apple is B2C, then the next is B2B, and we should not do that well.
Yeah.
And return to Apple B2C. So I think his talent really was in the B2C.
Yeah, if you think about it, it makes sense. I mean, he's a very artistic person. He had great taste. And B2B don't care about that.
Yeah, very rational, right?
Yeah, they don't care about that. So we're relationship driven. Steve Jobs probably isn't the best at building relationships. So he's not like a glad handler or like a schmoozer type of guy. So he's great at building amazing products. And if you're great at building amazing products, that's your skill set. B2C consumers will appreciate that more than executives.
That's great.
Learn people skills and customers to scale up business.
But now let's talk about scaling, scaling up, which is growing into sizable business, right? So obviously you had several experience with Lyft, Presto. Maybe could you say a few things about your experience, how to kind of manage go-to-market strategy to scale up business and also the lessons in going through this journey?
Yeah, so how to manage the go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, go-to-market strategy as well as kind of scaling up your business.
Yeah. So it's a very complex challenge as a founder to learn how to scale up in terms of like you have to learn management skills, right?
Mm.
You have to become a great recruiter, you have to find good executives, you have to hold those executives accountable. I think, I spent about 8 years as a CEO just learning, and failing, to be honest, like making a lot of mistakes.
What kind of mistakes do you think you would like to share?
A whole bunch of management mistakes. Like I would say, like there's always the typical ones like you can hire the wrong people, so you don't have the right radar, but also managing people poorly. And as a great manager, you have to say the right things at the right time, and you have to know the right action to take at the right time. And that's not obvious. It's not taught in business schools even. Like you have to just do it and see what works and what doesn't work. Early on in my career, I would channel what I thought a good manager would do. I wasn't being myself. I was like trying to be someone else. Who, oh yes, T-Dog managed like this, or some other person managed like this. Maybe I should do the same and see what. Then I realized like it didn't feel right, and I still made a lot of mistakes. So I was like, if I'm going to make mistakes, I'll make it as myself. And because ultimately, I realize I'm not a jerk. I don't want to be like pretend to be a jerk, right? But I like to be direct. I like to be very clear with people what I expect. But I also want to be human. I don't want to be inhumane. So there's a bunch of things you have to learn about yourself and your style and what works with people. They have to learn about different people. There are different types of people on the other side. You have to be really, it's deeply human, right? Like you really have to understand some people are good at this, but not the other things. Some people are good at most things, and you have to have like a deep understanding of them. Ultimately, when you're scaling up, is a people challenge. Like you got to find, you put people in place so they can go and solve problems for you. Your choices on executives that you bring on, and your choices on, like how you manage the company are going to be massive decisions in going in. There's really no short way of learning it, honestly, except for just jumping in and doing it. But the good news is after 8 to 10 years, you could figure it out. So,
but that's very interesting, actually, kind of equate the scaling, partially with the people issue, which I think can make a lot of sense because in the scaling phase, you are kind of relying on other people. And also, I like your point about to be authentic, be yourself, rather than just try to mimic other so-called hero managers, which are not very real.
Yeah.
I think these are great points, kind of also learn the people skills, deal with the people, communication. How about the business side? Like, because you talk about maybe making some decisions, especially the investment decisions at certain right time or wrong time. Do you have anything to say about that? Kind of just to help the company to scale up.
Well, on the go-to-market side, like customer acquisition is a big question, right? Like, how do you deal with customer acquisition? And over time, you get to learn about different types of customers. You have consumers, you have small businesses, you have enterprises, right? And different buying behaviors, different buying cycles. When do people write checks for your product? In B2C, like, there's companies out there which only make money optionally, basically like, consumer decide to buy the upgraded package or something like that, right? In enterprise, you can sign, I mean, we signed an 8-year contract for, 50 plus million, it was a total of well over 100 million in revenue.
Mm.
You can do that in one shot, but it takes you like an 18-month sales cycle.
A very long cycle,
Yeah,
yes.
so it's so different, right? And I think probably the main advice I can give you is like really understand your segment and like how they make decisions, what kind of budgets they have. One problem that founders have sometimes is they go after um, companies with the wrong budgetary profile to their product. So like if a company has low margins and doesn't have big budgets to make expenditures, don't go after them with a high price product.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but if a company has big budgets and a lot of expenditure, don't go after them with like a cost plus product. Go after them with a product that meets the budget of the company you're selling to. So, like as a founder, you really have to deeply understand your customers' like profile. And that's something I didn't realize. As an engineer, you're really thinking about like inventing technology and building the right product to solve a specific solution. But I didn't really think about the customer, like the makeup and how they make decisions and what their budgets are like and how they allocate money to decisions. Like that was a big learning for me.
Maybe also the decision process, the decision maker, even the politics sometimes don't
Totally.
need to be the case.
Totally, yeah. I got good at all that stuff. Like selling to enterprise, you wouldn't expect like this, MIT engineer to be like an enterprise sales guy. But like I learned that part of it, right? So now I don't want to do it again. But it's like so it's something that I learned the hard way. And I think all founders can learn, about their customer, but they have to push themselves to think critically about that piece of it. And don't ignore, don't minimize it. Like think extremely deeply about it.
Extremely deep.
Yeah, as deeply as you think about your product. Like most founders know everything about their product, right?
Mm.
But they don't know everything about it. And they don't really think deeply about when the customer wakes up in the morning, what breakfast did they eat?
Well, it's a very, very nuanced.
Very deeply, like as deeply as you could possibly think about it. Like
Mm.
where did they live? What lifestyle did they have? What are their career aspirations? Like every single thing you should know about your customer, right? And if you don't really understand that, then every single you can't make the right decisions. And that's another reason why VCs, I think, are just like have no hope. Like they can't understand at all that level of detail. So again, the resolution is just very, very low. Yeah.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And also the other thing relating to scaling up is many times you see companies when they kind of enter a certain segment and they're doing well, but in order to scale up, we're going to continue to grow, they enter a new segment. It could be the new market, new verticals. Have you had that kind of situation? If you do, how do you deal with that? It's almost like a very different market.
Yeah.
But in order to grow, you have to do that. So
Yeah, I'm always a big proponent of that. Having multiple second acts, third acts in a company. You can look at Lyft and Uber, right? Like Uber has really expanded their offering. They have Uber Eats, they have like these delivery services, they have a bunch of other things, right? Which Lyft hasn't really developed. And I think Uber's benefited from that, right?
even sometimes without changing the product, just different
different
customer
offerings.
segments.
Yeah. Amazon has done a really good job
Yeah.
of adding new segments. I mean, most of their margin now comes from AWS,
Mm.
right? Most, their e-commerce product doesn't make that much margin, Most of the valuation is based on their AWS. So, you have to keep inventing, as founders. And that's the fun advantage that founders have as CEOs later on in the company's evolution is that they don't stop inventing. So that's why I always bet on founders. Yeah. And by the way, it's a free stock tip for everyone. Like you can't really go wrong. It's hard to go wrong with investing in founders. Yeah.
Identify and respond to real, not fake, competition.
How do you deal with the competition? Of course, we understand startup companies, founders, they need to focus on the customers, being the innovators. But do you pay attention to the competition? And if you do, to what extent? Maybe share with us about your practice about dealing with the competition.
Yeah. So I think there's like real competition, there's fake competition, right? Fake competition is someone who has like a website that says they compete with you, but you never really hear about them other than that, And maybe they're going out raising money, but you never really hear about them from the market. A real competitor is someone like when customers are telling you, this is like a real alternative I'm considering, right? Just because a VC tells you this is a competitor doesn't mean it's a competitor. just because they have a bunch of blog posts and tweets and like LinkedIn posts doesn't mean that they're a competitor. The only way that they're a competitor is your customers are saying, hey, I'm thinking of not buying your product, I'm going to buy some other product instead.
Mm.
And I think once that happens, you have to really think deeply about also your competition as deeply as you think about your customer. Like everything about them we need to know, right? Not only the product, but also, how are they funded? Who is their founder?
Mm.
What size team they have? Where are they based? How are they finding product market fit? What are their goals? Like once you're in that thing, you have to really, 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 really go deep on that competitor, whether you have a real competitor. And and then you have to have a strategy to beat them. And I actually like competition. It drives me. I'm a very competitive person. So I wake up in the morning. I'm like, yes, I'm a competitor. I can go beat, right? But I think it also can be a blind spot for myself because like sometimes I get too focused on the competition and not focused on the larger picture. I just get focused on beating this one company. So I realize that's a blind spot that I have too. I think some founders have a mentality that they want to avoid markets when there's a lot of competition. Some founders like to be part of a competition. You can again look at certain people like Steve Jobs, who you can argue probably really thrived on competing with Microsoft.
Yeah.
And back in the day, where you had the Mac versus PC,
Right.
and like, well, they just kept competing, and then they eventually, I think, Macs are very has a pretty significant market share right now, right? In general, laptops are not a great business, but they compete. Of course, they just killed uh, other computing devices with the iPhone and other devices. So you know, some people like it, some people don't. If you don't like competition, you have to be in very blue ocean type opportunities where there's no competition. If you like competition, then you can pick very big markets and go after some competitors. It's actually quite easy to compete against incumbents. It's very easy.
Yeah. Because they're talking about the problems with incumbents. They're kind of slow.
Yeah.
Kind of satisfied and, greedy, those kind of things, right? That's
Yeah.
why I say it's easier to
It's
compete.
much easier. They're so slow. So much bureaucracy.
Yeah.
I like competing it. It's a very easy to win, actually.
Yeah.
But VCs may be like, oh, there's a good company. Like it's hard to raise money sometimes for VCs. Like, oh, there's a good company in the space. But actually taking down incumbents is quite easy if you know what you're doing. And it's harder to compete with other startups with great founders. If the market is small, you can beat other startups with great founders. You could be against a real food fight. But you can look at something like Lyft and Uber, right, where they had a very stiff competition for many years, and that probably helped both people. Like they both made the products great.
Yeah.
And
Customer benefit from
yeah,
it.
and the market was expanding so dramatically, it helped, right? So, yeah.
Maybe can you say a few words actually, before we move on to the next topic is the, if you see competition doing something great, very smart.
Yeah.
What's your philosophy?
Copy.
Is it copy it or just a kind of a copy?
As long as
Nice.
yeah.
Huh?
Copy plus if you can,
Okay.
Yeah, but the best ideas can come from anywhere. Your competition, it could come from another company, it could come from your mother, it could come from anyone, right? Take the idea and run with it, So, yeah, I wouldn't hesitate. I mean, Zuckerberg does it really well.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah.
He is ruthless. Like, he'll find a good product anywhere and he'll just copy it, So, and he doesn't even blink. It'll be ready by tomorrow.
The key question of how do you
Yeah.
balance between copying, copycat,
Yeah.
and innovator? How do you balance these two? Because nobody wants to be a copycat, especially in the United States, right?
It doesn't matter. I don't think it matters. Like, who cares? Like, you can innovate on other things, but when someone has a better idea than you take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
What
great.
did they say? Great artists steal, right? So, and then good artists copy, great artists steal. So, and what that means, I guess, is that you can take the idea, and you can actually do it so well that it actually doesn't belong to the other person anymore. So, like, I think that's something that Zuckerberg definitely does. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
My simplest and critical criteria of selecting people.
So these days, especially for the early stage ventures, what's your approach of forming, or first of selecting core team members and working with the teams, even set up the teams? Maybe you can share something about that because you touched on these kind of people issue, but could you elaborate this point?
Yeah, I wouldn't overcomplicate it. I would, try to work with great people, get things done. And when you have someone who's not getting things done, be ruthless about cutting them, try to
And also, before you kind of selecting these people, you say try to find the right people. What's your criteria of great people?
Great people are people who solve problems quickly and get things done and communicate really well.
So that's your criteria.
Yeah, it's very simple. And I don't think you need to make it more complicated. If someone's solving problems quickly, getting things done, just really just focus on that, filter out everything else. Filter out everything else. Just like, doesn't matter what school they went to, everything matters where they're based. I don't, I don't, obviously communication is important, so that's not something you can talk about. If you don't understand what they're saying, if they're not responding to you, that's a problem, right? But almost nothing else matters, and it doesn't matter how old they are, how young they are. There's so many other things that distract people,
So basically say, maybe communication will become a soft skill, but other than that, just look at the results.
Get the stuff done. Yeah. Well, if they're a designer, are they making good designs or getting stuff done? If they're an engineer, are they building good stuff? Delivering on time, and like all those things. Like, are the salespeople, are they selling?
That's interesting. But how do you look at the other side of these people, like the personal characters, personalities,
You want to work with good people. You don't want to, if someone's a jerk or someone's a liar, nobody wants to. It's very obvious. Yeah, you don't want to work with people, but you don't want to over optimize. You don't have to work with saints, you don't have to work with someone who's like spending free time, at a charity or something. Like, just keep it simple. Yeah.
Okay, that's your thought. That's great.
Experience/lessons, managing stress in new ventures.
You have done several companies. I'm sure, kind of you have learned a lot. I also assume you kind of changed over the years, as you mentioned. Could you kind of elaborate your kind of, the different approaches as you gain more and more wisdoms to do the new venture companies? What are some of the key learnings? I even call that as like a timeless lessons I can share with the young generation of entrepreneurs. Maybe put in differently, to kind of illustrate the difference. What's the difference between inexperienced you versus the experienced you? What are the differences in approaching doing the start of company or new ventures?
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, I think the experience me is much better with people, like like dealing with people, hiring teams, putting teams in place, getting stuff done with the team, and I know what to worry about, what not to worry about. And
Can you give us some example about the what to worry about, what not to worry about?
Yeah.
If possible.
Yeah, inexperienced founders or just anyone inexperienced with anything, like, say you're an inexperienced gardener, you go to your garden and you see a weed, right? Like, how much do I worry about this weed? You don't know how much to worry about that weed, right? You don't know how to handle that weed. It's the same in startups. It's like, okay, a person just quit, or this build was delivered had bugs. How much do I worry about that? Like, is this a big problem or a small problem, right? And knowing how to calibrate your reactions to different things that happen in startups is the biggest learning that you get over time. It's like you just know what to do in every situation. You've seen everything before. You've seen the whole movie before. And also that set of skills also helps you when you have a black swan event, like the pandemic. Like black swan happens, right? It's not, you will have it every so often. And if you have the right set of skills, you have the right mental model built up in your head, you just know how to react to those different things. And here's what I should do. Okay. Oh, we have a black swan event. Okay, so that means my team will be worried, my investors will be worried. I have to do these sets of things to make sure people understand what's going to come going forward. I have to, the financial situation will be this is what I do. Right. Same with starting a company. It's like, okay, I need to build. You have again a playbook in your head. Okay, I need to understand the market. I need to understand, the customer. I need to spend a lot of time with customers. I need to build something that I like. I need to build something that my friends like. So it's the same set of things, but you just you get a lot calmer over time, and you get a lot more surgical and precise about your actions. I find a lot of inexperienced founders are very worried all the time, and I'm rarely worried. Like because like I kind of know. I mean, I'm worried, but I'm not that worried. I'm curious. I'm interested, but I'm not. I know what to do. Like it's not something where I'm like I don't know how to handle. Even if the uncertain thing happens, I know what to do. So like you have a lot more poise over time. And I would say just the inexperienced founders, like the way you get that is just do the thing. You do the thing. You'll have a bunch of problems. Try to have good mentors in your life and that you can talk to. I used to always really try, like to have dinners and lunches with founders a few years ahead of me who have done it before, and they would always calm me down. They would always like know how to handle situations.
So kind of answer my second question, but I still have the first question. Let me kind of reiterate what I mean. The second question, basically, you advise to inexperienced founders to speed up their learning is to have mentor.
Mhm.
So they can talk to, and if they run into some challenging issues, then they got the real situation-based advice, which I think is that's your advice to the young entrepreneurs to speed up their learning, right?
Yeah.
So earlier you talked about these days, you kind of worry less about a lot of things, but still, as experienced founders, what kind of things you tend to be more sensitive? If you see that happen, you say, I need to pay attention to that. I need to worry about that.
Anything with the customers.
That is the sensitive.
Yeah. You're just very sensitive to your customers.
Mm.
And like you're very sensitive to what decisions are they making, why are they making these decisions, what's the market changing like? Is there like a new competitor my customers are going to, or are my customers turning away for this for some reason? Like you're super, super sensitive to customers.
So these are the big worry part.
Yeah. But not you again, you're not that worried because you know what to do.
Yeah.
But you're very sensitive to it.
Mm.
It changes your decision making. But I would say at this phase of my career, I don't spend, I'm very little stressed. Whereas early on, I was enjoying it a lot, but I also was worked, and so like I was enjoying, when you're on the steep part of the learning curve of anything, like people taking your classes, and within the steep part, it's uncomfortable. It's like you feel like, oh, there's so much new stuff. I'm just a little bit lost, right? Being on the steep part of the learning curve is always uncomfortable, but you get past it as a founder, and it takes many, many years though. It's not like if founders expect to get past it in 1 or 2 years, well, it's going to take 5 to 10.
Because that's part of their life.
Part of the
growth, right?
Yeah.
Personal
Yeah.
growth.
Yeah.
And also, I know actually, including people here and also our audience, many of them are immigrant entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
So do you have any kind of special advice to this group of entrepreneurs who, come from different cultural backgrounds, new to this country, to help them to become more successful in their entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah. First of all, to immigrant entrepreneurs, I always say welcome. Welcome to the U.S. We want you here. We want you to be successful. Um, and thank you for your coming here. I wish the United States would say that to immigrants. I wish the United States would say welcome and thank you for building your lives here, because this country was built by immigrant entrepreneurs and will continue to be built by immigrant entrepreneurs. And even though there's no red carpet at airports when you land, but that's something that I'm trying to change. I'm trying to say, I'm trying to help immigrants come here and with Lima but I'm also trying to help them be successful in the U.S. And because like the way I think about it is, an immigrant entrepreneur, especially, not only they're building a business, but could be starting a family here, it could be having kids, and that legacy passes on, has a huge multiplier effect for the country. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, there's always some disadvantages to being an immigrant. There's always some learning that you have to do that, it's something different from your home country. Well, my wife is an immigrant as well. She's from China, and I'm an immigrant as well. I would say like for the immigrant entrepreneurs, they have a huge advantage though, which is they tend to be a lot more hungry. They have a chip on their shoulder. They have something to prove that they can make it happen.
So that's the advantage.
That's
it kind of leverage.
Yeah, that's always been the advantage of immigrants. And that's why like so many companies are founded by immigrants, because they have the desire and the will to get past those 99% of no's that are going to be out there, right?
Mhm.
And they
Kind of
don't,
tenacity kind of
they
thing.
don't expect an easy journey. They don't expect it to be handed to them. They expect to fight for it. And that's what you have to do. You have to fight for it. It's not going to be handed to you. And if you're willing to fight, then you're going to do well. Because startups will reward the fighters, the resilient people. So they're set up well, but they have a journey ahead to fight.
That's great.
Q&A with Rajat Suri on startup development.
Actually, we can open this up for any kind of questions you want to ask, Raj, about anything relating to innovation, entrepreneurship kind of stuff. maybe kind of speak louder so that the video can capture.
So I am starting a company, but it's bootstrapping. And
Bootstrapping, yeah.
how can I, as an immigrant, like get solve these visa issues with such kind of like, because we have investor interested, but we don't want to take the money now. We have enough to build for 3 months. So what options do I have, and how can Lima help?
Okay, there's two separate things. One is visa, which we can help with. We can help you get O1, EB1, EB2 visas. We have a specialty in this, in the visa situation. So if anyone has visa issues or green card issues, we'll help with the whole thing. So we have a service for that. You can just reach out to me at raj@limadream.com or go to limadream.com and sign up there. And then, for the bootstrapping, look, bootstrapping is a good way to go. I really encourage founders to think very deeply about how they can raise customer financing, which I call organic financing, versus inorganic financing, which is VC. I actually written an essay about this. The only sort of startup essay I wrote. It's on Substack. I can send it to you guys. But it's like it's about organic financing versus inorganic financing. And organic financing is healthy financing. That's when customers pay you to develop a product, right? That means that customers have a problem that's so big that they're willing to pay for it. And you can actually get money from customers even before you build the problem. Because you can just go and talk to them and say, like, hey, is this a problem for you? They're like, yeah, it's a problem for me. And then you could show some screenshots of it. And say, like, okay, well, here's the screenshots of like what it would look like. Would you be willing to pay $20,000, $30,000? All you need to get a product off the ground, right? And then you can get 2 or 3 of those customers, and you're off and running. You got 100K financing.
That's true, and also that's a more powerful market message.
Way more powerful.
That's right.
Yeah,
These are facts.
Yeah, way more powerful. And by the way, customers are the ones who have the problem. VCs don't have the problem. Like for VCs, like we don't want many. One of many fish in the sea, and they make their decisions based on a whole bunch of random factors. So they just take up your time. The customer is actually, that time is well spent. They care about you because they're going to solve one of the problems. So I always encourage for B2B businesses to pour into raise money from customers if you can. I think a good salesperson should be able to get millions upfront without writing around the code.
Maybe, yeah, just speak louder, and also maybe introduce yourself so that our audience, our video can capture that.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
David, just introduce doing the AI agent for professional working.
AI agent for
Yeah,
professional.
networking.
That's a startup company, right?
I'm also from Mobile.
Oh, cool.
And take a triple degree in what to do software engineering, statistics, and statistics.
Oh, all easy stuff.
Yeah, I saw you do the dual degrees.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, and class 2017.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Great.
So, yeah. So my question is, and for your startup journeys, and yeah. So what's the most difficult? How did you work out?
Yeah. Look, I think I've had many difficult times in my startup journey, many existential moments where my companies looked like they wouldn't make it. Which are probably the most difficult. Many tough moments where like great people I really like working with left companies, which are very difficult, or someone who I respected didn't like me for some reason because we disagreed on some business topic or whatever it was. Never easy. I think interpersonal issues or like existential issues are never easy. But it's part of life. It's part of the founder journey. And my life is not that easy, but look at Elon Musk. Like he's like taking a way more risk than me. And like I think there are other founders out there, Sam Altman and stuff like that, who are really taking big swings. And those people inspire me that like, hey, my life isn't that difficult. So I could be doing more difficult things. So
that's kind of interesting because talking about as you become more mature, become calmer, and deal with issues, and also that reminds me a slightly different way of talking about the entrepreneurial spirit. Tend to be more positive, and even look at the challenges. Yeah. You look at the challenges from a very positive way compared with these great people. Their life may not necessarily be better than yours.
Yeah. I mean, like you sign up for this life, right? You sign up for being a founder. It's not going to be easy, and part of it is the challenge is attractive. You want a more challenging life. When you're an employee in a company, yes, there's less risk, but there's also less challenge, and I would find that pretty boring. So I've signed up for a challenging life. It's going to be lots of ups and downs, and I'll take both of them, when they come.
Very interesting. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Please introduce yourself and I'll speak a little bit louder.
Yeah, definitely. Hi, Rajat. Super nice to meet you here. My name is Bob, and I graduated from Stanford about 3 or 4 months. 4 months, 5 months ago. Actually.
5 months ago.
A long time. And I'm currently I'm using AI to rebuild Pinterest basically and Tumblr. And one comment I want to make, it's very important, is I'm really, we have all attended a lot of these type of speaker events. And one thing I'm really amazed is that you stress a lot on, talking about how to build a consumer business, which is really talked about by a lot of investors or founders these days. And I really, really appreciate that, because in my case, I'm building something that is directly consumer facing and
B2C, right?
B2C, yes. And I want to, just really happy that I hear all these suggestions from you. And one question about that is, about problem seeking, like we always talk about what is the most pressing problem, like either consumer basis or the B2C, B2B company faces, right? Now, one thing I've discovered for consumer is that sometimes consumers don't really understand what they want. Like you could go out and do the interview with them. Sometimes they don't understand like the potential need that actually lies in your human nature, but actually exists. For example, back in 2015, you got asked if you wanted watch short format videos like TikTok. They will say, well, we have YouTube. It's free. It's really good.
It's good enough. I don't need the extra stuff.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the consumer business that is viable has already reached the point that you have, as a founder, you have to get some sort of understanding much more deeper than the consumers themselves understand about themselves. And that leads to a problem, say, when you are describing what is the problem that you are trying to address for these consumers to the investors, how do you actually describe it in a way that is the most effective to let them know? Like in my case, I'm trying to build something that solves the discrepancy of long tail contents, supply and demand as per life discoveries. But that's doesn't seem something that is super easy to describe to an investor. So what would be your strategies in dealing with this type of scenarios?
Yeah, it's very difficult. Most investors, especially nowadays in Silicon Valley, they don't just any consumer idea, will have an uphill climb.
Mhm.
And the way to do it, I think you have to build a demo. You have to have a great demo which shows you cannot describe it in words. I don't think or a video. You can do a video. And you should have a memo which explains, like a long form memo. Elevator pitches won't work.
Yes.
If you have like a memo describing the thesis, and you can point to analogies of like other things that have worked in this space. I also again suggest making as much progress as possible without raising money, so that you can show like what's working and what's not working, and that also helps a lot, and more progress you make by yourself. But in general, consumer businesses, I think, building the old model of like trying to raise money, build up usage like Facebook did, and then like get enough usage to run ads. It's very difficult these days. It's like there's just too many companies that have failed, and most investors will be very wary of going there. So I actually think find a way to monetize, put a paywall somewhere, right, and like try to get consumers to pay for it, that's a very bad, because consumers are a lot more likely to pay these days than 10 years ago. Their consumers are very comfortable nowadays paying for apps and paying for internet products. So that's a big change. I would recommend that model better.
Definitely.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, yeah, please.
So Lillian from Clarity House, we're in B2B, and as you mentioned, most of the investors and capital funds are ready for the B2B in Silicon Valley right now. And since you have great success experience in this field, why do you choose to do Tribe like at this stage?
Why I'm doing Tribe?
Yeah.
Which is a B2C, is that what you
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I see, because the anti kind of a main.
That is
Okay.
aligned with your domain expertise. Why do you choose to do B2C like social ads?
Yeah, well, I like building products for consumers actually, and so I realized about myself that I don't really like selling products to executives. I rather like it's just not that gratifying for me, And I like building products that other consumers can use, and I get more enjoyment that a product that everybody can use, and so I just made a decision that that's something I like to spend my life on, is something that my family and friends can use, everyone in the world, including all of you. Sign up for Tribe, and I can send you, I can show you a QR code for a link that, you join my podcast group. And you give me some feedback on Tribe. I enjoy, but if I'm selling a B2B product, I don't know, like building software or something, it's kind of boring. It's not something I want to.
So again, goes back to your kind of passion question,
Yeah.
right? That's part of your passion.
That's
And also you're
gonna.
going to commission that job because you do believe they are opportunities.
Yes, I believe there's opportunities, and I believe like people would be better off, with a better product. Like the product we're building at Tribe is a shared interest group chat, which the best shared interest group chat platform that's ever been built, which means that you'd be able to find your tribe. All of your interests. You have probably maybe 5 or 6 different interests, or maybe much more. There's people out there who have the same interests as you that you haven't met, that you have a chance to
Yeah,
get to know,
that's true.
and you can fully like self-actualize yourself as well when you talk about your interests with other people who have interests.
So that's your vision. Yeah.
That's a group chat for every one of your interests. I think is something that I think I have that, or I'm building that, and I find it really enjoyable. To be able to, when I want to talk about basketball, I can talk about basketball. I want to talk about family company, I can talk about. I want to talk about being a dad. I have 2 kids. I can have a tribe that I talk about being a dad, and I wish that for all of you, that you all have, find your tribe, and we all have different tribes for different parts of our lives. It's a great thing. So we try to make that easy for people to find.
Yeah. And also come that apples your only point. You say many times you start with yourself.
Yeah.
You're not the first user.
Yeah.
And you liked it, and okay.
Yeah.
Please. Yeah.
We like second time consumer founders and do it at all plans, like have goal with chance to like gathering, like learning together, like streaming for panels or everything like that. Users and ARs, but currently, we're still believing like network effect, all this all and like mobile internet like stories. But currently, there's market clouds that everybody's talking about AI. But I found that like I'm not sure it is the right time for us to build an AI product for B2C, because like everybody knows that C.AI, like people paying the monthly subscription fee, right? But like the product works better, like the more like time that user put it into the product, like the more inference costs, like the company should pay, right? It means that like the more the product is more engaging, like the company can lose a lot of money, because like like you're like just human computer interaction, like people don't want to pay that much, only monthly subscription fee. So I'm not sure if is there any like good angle that you're thinking about, like integrating AI with your product, or you think it's just not the right time?
Well, it's a good question. Look, I think AI has cost, but you have to pass those costs on to the consumer. Like consumers need to pay for it somehow. And I do believe that for great products, consumers are willing to pay. So you deliver a good product that really adds value. Don't be afraid of putting up a paywall somewhere, and you find out where are the parts like that. Maybe it's a free product for what people, but you use the AI services, you got to pay, and you're making good profit on those AI.
But like for last generation of like the consumer product, like Facebook, like people don't have to pay for using it, but they can monetize too.
So in other words, you're saying they get used to the free product.
Yeah, but I believe consumers are more used to paying for things now, and you have to market it well, package it well. But like, just because Facebook is free doesn't mean that like consumers are used to having free stuff all over the place.
But like, do you think there is opportunity that people can still building like a exceeding maybe 100 million DAU?
I don't know. Of course, I believe there's a possibility. It'd be crazy for anyone to say that there was no possibility. It hasn't happened recently, but it doesn't matter. That's what our job is as founders, of figuring it out. Yeah.
But actually, just to echo your point, I know the Sunny Betty, who was the CTO, CDO of Snowflake.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure you know this company. Snowflake is just that their whole premise of the business model is to an anti-subscription model, because in the software, subscription is such a mainstream business model. But the company come out and say, no, we're going to change the way we charge customers by usage.
Yeah.
So you don't have to fix the fee. You pay by usage, and the company was very successful. So that means, it's going back to your point.
Yeah.
There is a mainstream, but there's opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of opportunity. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for watching.